Hey guys, this is the DreamItAlive show. I'm your host, Ash Kumra, co-founder of DreamItAlive.com. And DreamItAlive.com is an online community. You can build, create, and share and promote your dreams and goals. So why not take that next step with your life and become the best version of you? Check out DreamItAlive.com. So along those lines of becoming the best version of yourself, one of the things I've recognized and I've learned from many successful people, including our guest, is you have to model yourself after people who have been there, done that, people that have achieved that dream life, people that are living that calling, people that are living that passion. And today's guest, international best-selling author, well-renowned speaker and consultant, and he jokingly says on his site that he's a juggler, Michael Gelb, is someone who I feel is a master of understanding what it takes to model from the most successful people in the world and how we can apply that to our lives. He's written, I actually heard about him at first through a book called How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci. So this interview, from a personal standpoint, is kind of like a fanboy interview. My business partner, Erin Mester, one of my co-founders with DreamItAlive.com, is all about optimizing yourself. She's a huge information junkie like me, and she told me about this book. And last year I read it, and it just blew my mind, How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci. Then I said, okay, this guy knows a thing or two. So I started to read his other books. He has an awesome book called Brain Power, which improves your mind as you age, which we're going to get into in a little bit because I think there's a huge aspect of visualization there. He's also written other books such as Work Like Leonardo da Vinci and The Spirit of Leonardo. And what's really cool about Michael is I feel that he melds the whole business and creative nature together. I've noticed that the most successful dreamers, and for this case, let's just say entrepreneurs like, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Richard Branson, and of course, Leonardo da Vinci, they have a common sense on what it takes to achieve a dream. Like they have a big dream, but they really use the creative side of themselves. I'm not talking about paintings and things like that. That, of course, is helpful, but I'm talking about really tapping into the creative psyche of what it takes to make things happen. And his work is impressive. He's worked with clients such as DuPont, Merck, Microsoft, Nike, and many others. If you go to michaelgelb.com, Gelb, he has an awesome speech on his homepage called How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci. It's a really cool 3-minute overview that he gives. But let's just dive into it. So Michael, how are you today?
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Good. Well, why don't you, before we kind of dive into your work and all the great stuff you're doing, why don't you share with us how you got to where you are right now, your own journey in life?
Sure. It came from following my own dreams and being clear about what my criteria were. I knew that I wanted to do something that I loved, and I knew that it had to be something that would help others. And those are really my fundamental criteria. And this is, way back in the 70s. I didn't really think about money or business in those days. I just thought, well, I need to do enough that I'd be able to make a living, but I wasn't ambitious on the financial or business side. I just wanted to make a difference in the world and do something that I would love. So I kept exploring the confluence of those two things, what would help others that I love to do. And, I actually did learn how to juggle and became a professional juggler. That was something I loved that seemed to delight other people. But I also was always fascinated by the workings of the human mind. And I thought that if I could help people understand the mind and how the mind, body, emotions, and spirit work together, which was my greatest personal passion. I wanted to know myself. I wanted to understand myself. And so as I immersed myself in practical ways of studying the path towards integration of body, mind, spirit, and emotion, I began to write about it, first for my master's thesis, which then became published as my first book, and has been in print now for over 30 years. And then I discovered that I could apply the techniques of creative thinking that I was learning as part of this journey to my own process of writing. So I just started writing more books And then I realized I loved to teach, so I started making up seminars around the books and the areas of passionate interest. And then in the late 70s, I got invited to present on a corporate seminar in Switzerland. And the people on that seminar loved what I did, so they started inviting me to other events around the world. So that's how I started working with businesses. And then I learned about business by paying attention to what my clients' concerns were. So I started to focus this work on how people could be more successful, whether they were entrepreneurs or leaders in global companies. And so that's what I just kept doing. I write books, I make up seminars, and I keep exploring how we can better integrate body, mind, emotion, and spirit.
Well, along those lines, and thank you for sharing that extensive journey, I'm curious to know, and I know this is a broad subject, a broad answer you might give me, but what are some of the most successful traits that you've learned from working with some of these successful people and companies that you've mentioned?
Well, the greatest role models, as you mentioned earlier, for me are these phenomenal historical figures. And what I've done is translate their incredible wisdom, like Leonardo da Vinci or Thomas Edison, for example, into people's current circumstances and challenges. So I've met great people and wonderful leaders, and the best ones that I've worked with over the years are the ones who are most skilled at actually applying these universal principles that I've written about.
Yeah.
So they do actually embody the principles for thinking like Leonardo or innovating like Edison, and they relate to me. They hire me as their executive coach. I've been on retainer to many of these clients for many, many years, and what they seem to resonate with is that I help them become aware more consciously of what they've been doing that makes them successful. And then I help them do it more comprehensively and, of course, guide the people who work in their companies to learn these universal principles and practices so that we can create a more innovative and creative culture in the organization. It's one thing to teach an individual how to think like Leonardo or innovate like Edison. It's another thing to get a critical mass of people in an organization to be operating in this creative and innovative way. And when that happens, well, then real magic takes place.
You've talked a lot about, the mental psyche and channeling things. I mean, I'm assuming you're a fan of visualization. Am I correct?
Sure. I mean, it's just one of the things that works.
What role has visualization played for you, and how you use it to coach these successful people and organizations?
Well, it's so funny you mentioned, because it's like visualization. It sounds like some special thing that you need to read a book about or go on a seminar about, and I guess that's what. I mean, I teach that, and people read books about it, and they go on seminars. But it's just the only way anything ever happens. It's just so, to me, it's so commonsensical. I do teach Edison strategies for doing it. For example, in the Edison book, and actually in my new book, I should tell you about my new book, Creativity on Demand: How to Ignite and Sustain the Fire of Genius. I put together the greatest wisdom of all of these geniuses and linked it with the way in which the average person can not only create a vision, use visualization to see and feel and sense what it is they want to manifest, but how do you then empower your visualization with the greatest possible creative energy? And that's, to me, that's what inspired this new book, was the realization that you can learn about the creative mindset and you can learn about the creative process. And visualization is one of the essential tools of the creative process. But how do you empower that? How do you bring it to life? You need the energy. So how do you energize your visualization? That's a missing link for a lot of people. They learn, okay, you should see yourself in a positive terms using all your senses. You should create a vision board. I mean, there's things that just every single person should know how to do. But then how do you energize that? How do you bring that to life? That's my greatest passion now.
Okay, well, let's talk about the role that you mentioned vision boards, and so I mean, for all intents and purposes, I'm a big fan of dream boards, or well known as vision boards. The term is because it's a visual collage of representation of the things that you visualize, and it's something that you could look at every day, daily, subconsciously focus on, and achieve. What do you feel the role vision boards play in the work that you do?
Well, it's simple. The world that we live in does not support us in focusing on and manifesting our dreams. We're being sold a bill of goods. People are driven towards, if you turn on the TV, if you ride on a bus or a subway, if you pick up any magazine, you're constantly subjected to advertising and marketing to try to get you to want stuff that you may or may not actually want, that may or may not be in alignment with your highest purpose and goals and vision and dreams. So you have to take responsibility for focusing your mind, your attention on what's important to you. So if you can, for example, create visual representations of what you want and put it on a board in your dresser, on the mirror in your bathroom, in your car, everywhere you can. It's really simple. There's a battle going on for your mind, and there's either the lowest common denominator. There's a great headline in The Onion recently. They said, lowest common denominator plummets. So you're either being hypnotized by drivel, or you're consciously investing in making sure that you remember what's important to you. That's what it comes down to, is just creating ways to be sure you remember what's important to you, what are your priorities, and then representing them in a manner that you refresh what's important to you as often as you can.
That's awesome. Well, along those lines of visualization and dream boards and, untapping your creative psyche is naturally, clearly Leonardo da Vinci is someone which makes sense why you wrote these books on him and why you have such a amazing adoration for him. How did you come up with the idea of writing on Leonardo da Vinci?
Well, he was one of my childhood heroes along with Superman. But, I remember when I realized that Superman was only a comic book character, but Leonardo was real. And he seemed to be the ultimate archetype for the development of all our human potential. So I started giving examples from his notebooks and stories about his amazing creativity to inspire my students. And it just all kind of came together that one particular client asked me about speaking in Italy and what would I do. And I just said, how about how to think like Leonardo? And they said, can you really do that? And I said, sure. So I made it up. I went to the place where Leonardo was born. I went to the place where he died. I walked his footsteps. I started dreaming about him. And from those dreams, these 7 principles emerged. And ultimately, I translated those into the book, How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci. And it came out in 1998, still going strong. It's in 25 languages. I just got back from teaching it in Italy. I taught a group of 700 business people and coaches, trainers in Milan. Come pensare Leonardo, how to think like Leonardo da Vinci. Because he is a global role model. But people don't know how to translate their love of Leonardo, their intuitive sense that he's the greatest genius ever. How do you translate that into practices in your life that will enrich your creativity? That's what How to Think Like Leonardo is all about. And what Creativity on Demand is all about is how do you then energize those practices so that you create a profound daily momentum such that this is just your life, and it just has a momentum of its own. That's when this stops at a certain point. This stops becoming a thing that you do, and it becomes something that you are. And I'm trying to help people bridge the gap from, okay, I get this is a great idea. Thank you for writing this book. I get the 7 principles. How do I live this and breathe this so that it's just who I am? That's what the new book is about.
Okay. Well, that's amazing. I want to dive a little further into Leonardo da Vinci, and then we'll get into your awesome new book, which sounds really fascinating. If Leonardo da Vinci was working with you right now, let's say you guys were coaching entrepreneurs and big dreamers.
He is working with me.
He's channeling within you. That's true. You know what? I stand corrected.
That's okay.
What is some of the advice Leonardo you feel is giving these people right now? Like, I think you get what I'm trying to ask. Like, what advice would you give?
No. Well, we'll power through the 7 principles and apply them to answering that question.
Okay.
First one is ramp up your curiosity. Don't take yes for an answer. Keep driving to the heart of things. Be passionately curious. This is your birthright. Every child is born this way. As adults, we tend to be more focused on answers than questions, and that's where we lose some of that genius. So deepen your passion to know and understand and learn, and then do what Leonardo did and recommended, and keep a notebook or a journal where you jot down your intuitions and ahas and off-the-wall ideas. Second principle, cultivate your ability to think independently. So consciously explore different perspectives and different opinions, especially on issues which you have a passionate thought or feeling. So, really simply, if you're more liberal politically, make sure you think through intelligent conservative point of views. Vice versa, if you're conservative, you must think through the intelligent manifestation of an opposing point of view before you can say you've really thought about something. Cultivate independent thinking. At Leonardo's time, the problem with this was there wasn't enough information. Now the problem is there's too much. You've got to cut through the tsunami of spam to be an independent thinker. Third principle, surround yourself with beauty. One of the simple secrets of being more creative is to be inspired by beauty. So be in nature, walk in the mountains, walk by the ocean, look at the stars, the clouds. This is really simple stuff, but people need to actually do it. Listen to Mozart, look at the artwork of Leonardo and other great artists. Drink the finest wine you can afford. If you don't drink wine, drink fine tea, taste beautiful chocolates, and make something like this an everyday practice. It will dramatically enrich your baseline of creativity. The fourth principle is to embrace the unknown and uncertainty. Learn that ambiguity and the unknown are your friends if you're interested in being in being more creative. And especially become more attuned to the voice of your intuition, which usually speaks to you in the shower or the bath, walking in nature, 4 o'clock in the morning when you wake up, not in your office or when you're trying to get a good idea. It's a receptive, intuitive, quiet, nuanced self-attunement that's required. Then use both logic and imagination, art and science, reason and intuition in harmony and balance. And one of the best ways to do that is to learn mind mapping, which is the idea generation and organization method developed by my old friend Tony Buzan, which is one of the simplest, most practical ways for thinking like Leonardo. Next, balance your body and your mind and learn how to cultivate your energy. That's the 6th principle. And the 7th principle is to look for relationships and connections, be a systems thinker, look for the big picture, and integrate it in with your attention to detail on a daily basis. And again, mind mapping helps with that. So that's just the super fast, intensive course on what Leonardo would advise you today.
Okay. If you had to, what else have you not written about Leonardo yet that you want to write about?
I think, it's funny you say that because I was just thinking about writing a book for parents and for teachers and for kids. I have sections in the How to Think Like Leonardo book that relate it to business and relate it to parenting and relate it to children. But I might want to go into more depth on all that because I get so many requests from parents and teachers about how to bring these ideas to kids. Because I do a lot of re-geniusing. Many of my clients who are entrepreneurs or business people have been de-geniused, and they're smart enough to know they need to get re-geniused, so they come to my seminars and read my books. But wouldn't it be better if we could just champion the natural genius of children and prevent them from getting de-geniused? So we might want to focus on that more specifically as another possible project among the many that I'm currently juggling.
Okay. Well, one more question about Leonardo, and I want to dive into your book. If Leonardo, which entrepreneur, I should say, you feel right now is truly channeling Leonardo da Vinci right now?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Or who are some that come to your mind?
If I had to choose one, I'd take Branson because of his dream of flight, because that was Leonardo's dream. Leonardo da Vinci invented the parachute before anybody could fly. And that's really thinking ahead. And so Richard Branson, besides creating Virgin, which is a really great airline, his idea of taking people into space, that's a very Leonardo-esque kind of idea. So I probably have to nominate him for a current Leonardo Entrepreneur Award.
Awesome. Why don't you tell us a little about your new book and why you're so excited about it? Who is it helping?
Sure. It's called Creativity on Demand: How to Ignite and Sustain the Fire of Genius. And this book, when people get the book, they'll see there's a lightning bolt is the logo of the book. And that's because I was hit with a lightning bolt to write this book of absolute creative inspiration. And the inspiration was really simple. The book's divided into three major sections. The last one is called Mastering the Creative Process. The second one is called Mastering the Creative Mindset. And the first one is called Mastering Creative Energy. And the lightning bolt aha that inspired this book was, okay, I've been teaching creative process and creative mindset for 35 years and writing about it in all my other books. But the aha was what really makes this all work is the energy. So you do need to know that there are 10 principles of the creative mindset, and you really do need to know them and cultivate them. And there are fundamental practical techniques of the creative process, such as creative visualization, which we've been discussing, mind mapping, which I mentioned briefly, understanding the phases of the creative process, which helps you navigate it much more effectively, learning a method that I introduced in the book called Go Right to the Source, which takes the best of all the various tools of stream of consciousness writing and helps you use them to get access to your higher wisdom. So creative mindset, creative process, this is need to know information. But the missing link for a lot of people is the energy. They might know the mindset, they might know the process, but they don't have the energy to really make their dream a reality. So how do you cultivate the energy? Well, there are many, many ways of doing this that come from all sorts of different traditions. There's techniques of meditation. There's a whole yogic tradition. There's a lot that you learn in the context of martial arts training, which I've done for many years. But for me, the simplest, most elegant, and powerful tradition that I've learned is the ancient Chinese tradition of cultivating our vital energy, known as Qi Gong. Qi is vital energy. Gong is simply the Chinese word for cultivation or workout. So I've been teaching Qigong for many years, and I was actually on a retreat with a wonderful master. I was training 8 hours a day in Costa Rica when I got hit with this lightning bolt that said I had to write this book. And one of the things I realized I could do is go to my friends who are some of the leading Qigong masters in the world and ask them this simple question. What is the most powerful practice that the average person could do in 20 minutes or less to empower their creative energy? And these masters were very generous. They contributed to the book. I took the best of their contributions and I wrote them in terms that make them really simple and accessible. And then I created some new practices to help people access this creative energy and use it to empower the tools of the creative mindset and the creative process that I also teach in the book. So that's why I'm so excited.
That's amazing. You know, you're a fascinating guy. Like, I'm really now fascinated with what are your daily habits? Because, you know, I'll be honest, I've interviewed many authors, and a lot of them are very research orientated, or some are, hey, I did this as a career calling, but I feel like you are talking as you and Leonardo, the way you're talking. Like, how did you manifest this? Like, I'm really curious. What are your spiritual or lifestyle habits you do to keep this flow?
Oh, thank you for asking. Well, I mean, I do a lot of what's in my books.
Okay.
My friends, I mean, if you ask my wife, she'd say, "Oh yeah, that's what he does." You know, she reads the book. She says, "Oh yeah, well, that's just what you do." I mean, you know, I do Qi practice every day. I do my Qigong practice. I do my Tai Chi form. I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, so I can be inspired by exquisite natural beauty. I listen to beautiful Mozart music throughout the day. I drink the absolute best wines I can afford every night.
What does wine do for you? So I want to understand that. Why wine? You've mentioned wine a few times.
Yeah. Well, you know, I wrote another book called Wine Drinking for Inspired Thinking, Uncork Your Creative Juices. And fine wine to me is art in a bottle. Robert Louis Stevenson said that wine is bottled poetry. So I like to get the poetry out of the bottle. And wine in moderation, fine wine, has been one of the secrets of the great confluences of genius, certainly in the Western world. The ancient Greek symposium, the word symposium actually means to drink wine together, which was the key to the birth of Western philosophy and the quest for truth, beauty, and goodness, was a convivial gathering in which Plato, Aristotle, all these great geniuses shared fine wine and mused poetically. The Renaissance, Brunelleschi, Leonardo, Michelangelo, Machiavelli, Galileo, all shared fine wine while creating a rebirth of those ancient Greek ideals. And Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, John Adams, Madison Monroe, all drank the finest wine they could afford while crafting this notion of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So I actually do this with my clients. I lead them on a comparative wine tasting as part of a team building event, and then I get them to write poetry about the experience. And they invariably find that this makes for a much more creative, productive, and enjoyable meeting. But, you know, this is something that I really do practice myself on a daily basis. I'm very moderate. I choose the finest wine I can afford. Last night we had a fantastic Barolo from Paolo Scavino, and my wife and I spent some time musing poetically about the wonderfully inspiring qualities of that wine with the delicious dinner that we cooked after going to we go to the market, we look for the freshest things, and we creatively make up what we're going to enjoy for dinner each evening. So yeah, this is how we live. And you know, my wife's an opera singer, so she's practicing and singing beautiful music in our home. And pardon me, I'm doing my qigong practice and writing and doing wonderful interviews like this. This is just what we do when we're home.
Okay, so you do some mindful work with the qigong work. You do the creative work with the wine. What about, you know, how do you view the world? One thing I'm fascinated with is that very successful people and great thinkers like yourself, you guys see the world differently than a lot of people I know. Like, how do you view the world?
Well, I view the world as a place in need of three things: consciousness, creativity, and compassion. And my mission was very clear. And one of the exercises in Creativity on Demand, I try to help the readers define their life purpose, because there's no greater way to inspire and organize your energy than to know what your purpose is. And my purpose is really clear. It's to help the world become more conscious, more creative, and more compassionate. So I align myself with energies that inspire me to experience deeper consciousness, creativity, and compassion. So, for example, another thing I did yesterday was I practiced the meditation that I learned from the great teacher Amma, known as the Hugging Saint. And I encourage everyone who doesn't know about Amma, look her up, go get a hug from her. She gives her blessing by hugging people. And she runs the 10th largest charity in the world. So she's one of my spiritual inspirations. And I tune into the energy field that she represents on a daily basis and then try to translate that through my work, through my writing, through my teaching. So, I travel around the world. I just came back, I spoke to 700 people, and before that, 200 people in different cities. And then I was in Ankara for 1,000 people. And this is nonstop. So how do I recharge myself? Well, Qigong, beauty, everything we've talked about, and connection with a higher spiritual source, which, that's represented for me by many great teachers and masters who I've been blessed to either experience directly or indirectly, but Amma's one of them for sure.
So last question about this, about channeling. You've mentioned this a few times, and this is, again, for someone who might not be as familiar with this concept, but when you say you channel Leonardo da Vinci, when you say you channel Amma, who I agree is a phenomenal person, how does one channel these people?
Yeah, I don't say that I channel them.
Okay.
I don't. I say that I open myself to their wisdom.
Okay.
And ask basically to be... I assume that the wisdom that I'm attuning to is higher than my own personal wisdom.
Okay.
So I think, what I do, I try to be a vehicle for higher wisdom and get my own ego out of the way. I have a personality, I have a style, and that influences the way I interpret all this. And I have a lot of fun with that, but the channeling, so to speak, is just getting your own ego out of the way and saying, okay, Leonardo, how can I best represent you? Okay, Amma, please bless my efforts and bless these people that are in my seminar reading my book with your wisdom and guide me to act in a way that is as wise and helpful and loving and compassionate and creative as it can be. And that's the other great principle of being creative in your own life is surrender to a higher force. Ask for help when you're struggling with a creative project, whether your entrepreneurial venture or writing your book or whatever it is you want to manifest. Get out of your own way, ask for help, and then listen, at 4 o'clock in the morning or in the shower, walking in nature for the answer, because it will come, and stay tuned in to that, to being receptive to deeper wisdom, and just rinse and repeat for the rest of your life. That's what I do. Okay.
Well, what's next for you?
Well, I'm really into the sharing this new book and getting people inspired about the new book. So that's my big focus right now. And then I have this mind map here I'm at my desk in my office, and I have a mind map of all my possible next creative projects. So I'm floating in that space of uncertainty, waiting for the next lightning bolt to hit. There are lots of possibilities floating around. So I'll wait and see. But meantime, I want people to get creativity on demand, to do the exercises, to tell their friends, because I think it can really inspire and help a lot of folks.
Awesome. Well, Michael, this has been one of the most stimulating interviews we've ever done. It's ridiculous how intellectual and creative you are. I feel like I could talk to you for hours, and maybe the next time we talk, we need to do it over a bottle of fine wine. But
now you're talking, man. That sounds great.
Well, have a great day, and keep doing the great work you're doing. As a personal fan of your writing, and someone else who I said, my partner Aaron, who had recommended this book originally, thank you so much for what you're doing, and I can't wait to read your new book.
Thank you.